Everyone dreams of living an uncommon life, and the best asset you have to achieve your dreams is you. Welcome to the Uncommon Wealth Podcast. We're going to introduce you to people who are living uncommonly. We're also going to give you some tools and strategies for building wealth and for pursuing an uncommon path that is uniquely right for you.
Hello and welcome everybody to the Uncommon Wealth Podcast, where I'm your host, Philip Ramsey.
Hey, I'm Ryan.
Aaron Kramer.
And we're here ready to talk about a super important topic.
It's a great one.
You know, for 100 and I don't know how many podcasts we've done, probably 140, let's say, there's a common theme that comes up every time. You guys want to know what it is? You know what it is, because I told you why we're talking.
Marriage.
How powerful it is to have a supportive spouse. So I thought we'd just get in a room, my buddies, talk about how much our wives mean in our business and supporting of us. But this could be a woman listening to this and thinking about their husbands. I feel like having a supportive spouse is one of the biggest things when you're talking about going this uncommon path.
Oh my gosh.
And it's usually the first question I'll ask if somebody's like ready to shoot down this path. I'm like, what does your wife think? Or what does your husband think? And if you're not on the same page, I'm telling you,
I haven't asked them yet.
Yeah, we're not going to let you do it. I'll tell you that if you're not feeling that. So, all right, this is what I want to ask. I want to do the introductions, and I want you to introduce your spouse, and I want you to tell us and the listeners what their superpower is. We'll start with you, Ryan Garvey.
All right. Yeah, Ryan, married for 4.5 years to my wife, Victoria. She's... has many superpowers, mother of 2 boys, so the fact that she stays alive during the day and our house is somehow pretty orderly.
Not burnt down.
No, yeah, and she's in a good mood most of the time. She runs her own salon out of our basement, so Victoria Rose Salon.
Shout out.
If your hair is in despair...
Hey,
go and let her care for it.
That's a good slogan.
Yeah, it's a working title. It's just right off the dome. But yeah, I would say, and let me think. When I think of all of her many good qualities and how to maybe characterize them as a superpower, I think her ability to connect with people and give them dignity, whether it's a guest that is sitting in her, salon chair, or just someone out and about as she's going, about her day. She's someone who sees people and really cares about them. And there'll be times where maybe we're out somewhere and she'll see someone and be like, we need to go talk to that person. Or at the very least, hey, I feel like we should pray for that person. So someone who sees people and just has a genuine love for them. So
that's a good superpower.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, Aaron.
All right, my wife's name is Ashley Kramer. Her superpower, we have been together for a long time, so this is easy for me, but it's probably having a ginormous heart. She loves people to no end, and I don't think she has a bad bone in her body.
She does. She is a teacher. So
she is a teacher, so
fit.
Yeah.
For that, good. So my wife is Erin. I would say her superpower. She has many, like you guys. She does an amazing job of listening for me. And then also, this is a word that probably is going to give us in trouble. So ready for this? She submits amazing to my leadership. Sounds weird, but it's biblical. And she trusts me in our leadership, but she just is like, hey, wherever you want to go, I'm going to follow you, even if it's to the end of the earth. And you're going to take ownership of this, and you're kind of responsible for it. So, but that is a huge, I think, confidence boost in me. And so that's what I would say.
That's
about
awesome.
Aaron. Okay, quickly, Aaron Kramer. We know that he's an advisor with us.
Yeah.
Ryan Garvey. He helps us with Cube and personal finance. And then myself, you know me. So there you go. All right, my next question, because I have a couple questions to try to get this going.
There you go.
So if you were This is a weird question, but what was your expectations when you were to get married? Where would you be today? And then I think everybody, at least the response that we've had up to this point, is I wouldn't be where I'm at today without my wife. And I think that would be what you'd say.
Yes.
So what were your expectations before you got married of what your wife would support you with, and were those like lived out? Right, unmet expectations are the things that like are the relationship killers, and so it's a super deep question on a Friday, but it's fun to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Aaron can go first.
Oh, thanks, man. All right. Actually, I will own this one, and the fact that I don't really have an answer for it, but I do have a reason why I don't. And this is on me. Me and my wife being high school sweethearts, and by the time I knew I wanted her in my life the rest of my life. So, that's why I asked her to marry me.
Yep.
And we got married.
It's a good start.
Yeah. But I also had no idea what I wanted to do with my life and what my life looked like after college. So with that, I would have a really hard time answering what I thought marriage would look like, except for just being a good teammate. And she'd always been a good teammate to me. So throughout our dating years.
Yeah, that's good, man.
And brought me up and always held me there. So, but how the whole like leading, what it looked like, I was just trying to figure myself out in the first place. What actually kind of partner I was going to be, because honestly, through that little period there, I probably was the drag on the team. So
I outpunted my coverage too, Aaron. So I get you, man.
You too.
Okay, that's good, man.
How old were you guys when you got married?
Oh, man. Oh, that would have been 10 years ago. So 25?
Okay.
Yeah. I was 27 when we got married.
I was 28.
Okay.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah. So, expectations. I mean, good and probably not as good expectations. I wrote down some of the good ones. I can try to rack my brain for some of the not so good ones, but just the expectation, the topic of this show is that we would support each other. So similar to you, Aaron, like I was when we were dating, I was working a job in nonprofit ministry. And then when we got engaged in the first several years of our marriage, I was doing pest control. And now here I am with Uncommon Wealth Partners doing something completely different, but something that I feel for the first time really aligns with my values and my desires and my skill sets. And Victoria has been extremely supportive in all those transitions and someone that could be a sounding board as I was just praying through stuff, and someone to pray with. Like, it wasn't just me off of my own praying and trying to figure it out. Like you said, Aaron, we're teammates, so marriage is a partnership. So any decision I make directly affects her and vice versa. So someone who would ask me hard questions and, ask me questions to help me focus on my motives for why I was maybe wanting to make a change, and even just wrestling between the contentment of where I was, but also the desire for something more and not knowing how to get there. She's just been, a true partner in being supportive. And I try to, when she was kind of going through different iterations with her business, and she left the salon that she started at and then was at a different place, and then got to a point where she felt like she wanted to go out on her own. So us kind of having the conversation as we were looking for homes, like what would it look like for us to create that space for her to do that at home and be at home with our kids. And it's just been a true blessing to see that come to fruition, to see God bring that about. Right.
So that brings up my next question. Great alley-oop. Ryan, you don't have to go to the next one. So how has been ways that you've had to support your wife? Sounds like you got the house. All right, so Ryan's leading the charge. 20 points for you, buddy. Aaron, is there any time that you can think of a time where you had to support your wife?
Yeah. With my wife being in the education system, if anybody knows anything about the education system right now, it's not exactly the best. Parents aren't very nice to teachers, and
there's high expectations going on. It's the old education system.
Yeah, I mean, this story doesn't come from my wife, but it is a story. You hear parents come there like, "Why doesn't my kid know how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich?" And you're like, "Well,
our job isn't to parent your kid."
Yeah, I was like, I thought like I'm sending my kid to school to learn how to read, write, and those things. But yeah, so a lot of Karens out there. But anyways, I think it's supporting her through that. I think our biggest thing was supporting her. Like, she got out of education for a little bit, supporting her through there, and then getting back in, but also being able to be her rock, and looking through when she has bad days and why she's doing it and why she's fighting the good fight.
Right, listening.
Listening, asking questions.
Sure, it's good.
Those good things.
Yeah, I think there was one point, being a mother, being a father is one thing, but being a mother changes your whole paradigm, I think. Yeah. And being a parent changes your paradigm. I'll say that. But for women and wives and mothers, I think there's something that happens where you're like, who am I? Like you really have this questioning of, who am I? Now I have these little people running around. All my job is to make sure these little people don't hurt themselves and like grow up to be decent human beings. And there was a time where Aaron was like, I don't even know who I am. Like truly, like who am I? And I think there's a lot of women that go through this. And have you ever heard that old adjective? It's like the men marry women because they don't want them to change, and women marry men because they see potential or they want them to change.
Yeah.
And so when that happens, right, I think a lot of men are like, what do you mean you don't know who you are? And like, will try to manipulate or try to make them into the person they wanted them to be. And in that situation, I think this was kind of like a God thing. I was just like, hey, you take time to figure out who you are. And I don't care who you end up being, I'll still love you through that. And so if you ended up being a goth chick, I guess I'm into goth chicks. You know what I'm saying? I love
that. You sold this, like, I know we've talked about this in the past, and you're saying that, like, this is great.
Yeah. So giving her, I think, the freedom and then the space to kind of reinvent herself in a way. And I said, hey, go out with all your friends and do, and I'm not trying to like edify myself, but I was giving her space to try to create who she wanted to be. And I think we need that constantly, everybody. Because when you're first dating, everyone's got this facade that you're like, I'm the best person in the world. Well, when you get married, like that's the first thing, like, well, you're not. And you've been put on a facade. And so having that flexibility to change and adapt who you are. And she's always done a really good job for me. So when it was my turn to reciprocate that, it was really easy for me to just kind of follow her lead in that. And so that was a way that I was just like, hey, take your time. You figure out who you are. No matter who you are, I'm into it,
Yeah, that's awesome.
All right. Let's go to this. I wanted to go, because I think there's many ways that we can talk about how our wives truly support us and talk about practical stuff. Yeah. But what are ways that a spouse can support their spouse when they're going down this uncommon journey? Like, again, it's super important, but like I wanted to get down to the nitty-gritty practical things that you could do. If you're listening to this and your husband or your wife seems to be entrepreneurial, how do you edify them and also kind of like gel this with your own personal risk tolerance? How do you do this practically? I've got some things to start us off with, and then you guys can kind of take some turns and think through this. Full disclosure, I didn't really give them a lot of direction on where this was going to go. I had a little bit more time to think through this, so I'll give them a little thought or get a little time to do some thinking. But I thought the first thing that you can do is listen. Listen, and what you said earlier, Aaron, is ask good questions to try to help clarify what they're trying to say. And then listen, and then there's always that thing of like, this is what I heard. So, but not trying to solve.
Yeah.
That's like my worst problem. And I think every guy out there, all we want to do is like solve.
Guys have the worst problem with that.
So listening and then repeating back what you heard and then helping them articulate what is it that they're trying to accomplish in whatever they're trying to tell you. I think that's a really good way. Yeah. Really good place to start and be supportive in that. But listening, that Erin does that so well. I'll come up from the morning and she'll be like, how's it going? She'll just listen. And
that's amazing. Side note, this has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but I gotta give you props here. I don't know if anybody's ever told you, your whole family listens well. When I brought my daughter over here to like get babysitted by your daughter, and your daughter's like asking me questions, and I'm like, for me to like answer, and she's listening, I'm like, there is an age gap here. I'm supposed to be running this conversation. You are doing amazing at however old you are. So your whole family's good at that.
That's my wife. That's my wife, not me.
That's awesome.
All right. Other things, other applicable ways you can support your wife or spouse. Sorry.
I can go.
Yeah.
You want me to go? All right. So I think the one that I know my wife did for me that was huge was while we're on that journey, like you go on this journey of being an entrepreneur, you have your ups and downs. Like you're gonna like one day you're thinking you're on top of the world, and the next day you think like, why did I do this?
What?
Right?
You have ups and downs? I'm just kidding.
Yeah. So, but like the one thing I feel like my wife has done an amazing at, like throughout my entire life, but really I didn't recognize it until I took this path.
Yeah.
Was helping me see my strengths and weaknesses.
Oh, that's good.
Right? Like she
Stole mine.
sorry.
Good answer.
But like she really would, sit there and say, Aaron, like, well, you're good at this, or this is what really makes sense, or you're telling her things, and she'll point it out in a very loving way. And then even like not things that are strengths, things that
That's
maybe
good,
I'm
man.
not so good on it. She's like, and you're frustrated, and you're probably ready to like rip a phone book in half.
Right. Because it's not your gifting.
Yeah, and then
Right.
she sits there and can edify you. It's not that I suck.
Yeah.
It's just like, that's not your strength. So let's find a way to get through that in the meantime. It's like, oh my gosh.
That's good, Ashley. That's
Yeah.
good. Good.
Yeah, because if you were going to start a business that hopefully grows and then is going to have multiple, levels of different tasks, like you're going to have to think about better sooner than later of like, okay, how are you going to get somebody on your team to do those tasks that you hate or just aren't naturally gifted in? So
Yeah.
So
it's good
good.
that you share that. I would say, so Phil, you mentioned listening. I'd say right on the heels of that, like pray together. So
Ah, so good.
we prayed a lot about any kind of career change, and even just for wisdom and guidance and patience. I was trying to leave my previous job for a couple of years, and I kind of explored a couple different avenues, but they weren't the right solution. And like one of my maybe weaknesses is I can be a little impetuous. And so I'm like, oh, this is going to be the thing. And then I throw myself fully into that for like a month or two. And then I'm like, oh, it really wasn't exactly what I thought it would be. And then I just kind of throw it to the side. So I think there's merit in taking calculated risks and experimenting with things. But I had to kind of get to a place where I'm like, all right, do I really see this as a viable career path, or is it just the next thing that I'm trying to explore? And really, I came to that realization through praying and talking with Victoria, because she would just ask that question. She'd be like, is this really something you can see yourself doing long term, or is it just kind of like the next thing? And then I would say with that, we also just tried to create like a roadmap. So
That's good.
if you're going to take a new job and maybe you're taking a pay cut, which oftentimes is the case, like get your financial ducks in a row, have systems in place, talk about like a potential exit strategy, like give yourself a timetable. Like if it doesn't pan out in the first 90 days or 6 months, like are you going back to that other job, or kind of what is the exit strategy there, instead of just kind of jumping in without a plan?
It's like you work at Uncommon Wealth Partners.
I picked up a few things here and there.
I think that's important to talk about, because at the end of the day, when we sit down with a couple, normally they have very different risk tolerances. And a plan helps the person that's a little bit more conservative feel comfortable stepping down this uncommon journey, and then talking about the unknowns, or if things don't go according to plan.
Which they never will.
They never will.
Yeah.
But the fact that they can speak to of like, okay, if this doesn't work at this time, we're both agreed on this to be the, what we do next, and do it before the fire hits, so you can react or you have a little bit of time, and you're not like amped up by the time the trial hits. You've talked about what's going to happen before.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you guys talking about this makes me like love my wife more, because like you guys all got plans, and she had to marry a guy that's like, what's your contingent plan? Don't have one. Because
I'm going all in.
We're going all in. And we did. We suffered. Yeah. And it hurt my family, going through those times. But my wife stuck by me, so.
That's good.
For better or worse, richer
That's
or
good.
poorer,
Yeah.
or poorer.
I would say sometimes I love this one. I just put like provide other options and solutions. So when you are down this uncommon journey and things don't go according to plan, sometimes it's nice to have somebody give a different option or solution. And it's not like you're trying to solve it. It's just like, hey, we're trying to get every problem on the board, or the problems on the board, and then we're trying to find solutions no matter how weird or out of the box they are. And my father-in-law actually does this amazingly. Like we've done some projects together, His name's Chris Sampson. He never listens to this, but if he did, he'd be like, see, I got my name called out. But in these projects, and I've not been in a past to do carpentry, like that's not my family's deal, but because of him, I feel like I have a little bit more skill to do this kind of stuff. And so he and I at one point finished our basement in our old house. And I love this. I found that I love to learn as long as I can be hands-on doing the learning. So reading and then doing something. I was like, I'm all in. But anyway, he was so good because I'm kind of like let's just do it and we'll figure it out later. He was really good about, well, have you thought about this? Or like, what about this? And I'm like, oh man, I haven't thought about that. And that's something I should think about. Like, so then let's problem solve this, because if I would have jumped in on this, it would have been a hot mess. But since you very casually and just asked me about, hey, did you think about this? Or what about this solution? And like, it helped me process through of like, okay, and at the end, we had the best solution to move forward. But sometimes it's just like, hey, here's another option. Here's another solution. I don't care which one you do. And that's what I think my wife does so well, is she submits to whatever you want to do. But here's a couple options.
Yeah.
And it really is helpful to me to think about
Do you guys think there's a balance to strike there between like the anticipating and planning, but then falling into like the analysis paralysis of like, we've got to take into account every single outcome in detail before we can take that first step of action? Like, have you guys gone through that like in your marriages or?
100%.
Yeah.
And I think like the Michael Jackson syndrome or the Prince, like, have you ever heard that, where they like didn't produce something until it was perfect? And like how much like just content they have that's never been published or produced because it wasn't perfect. And
that sounds stressful.
It sounds stressful and it puts you into a level of like almost frustration always, because you're looking for perfection and it never will happen. And so,
or the safest path, like,
right.
Because I find so many people waiting to like wait for that perfect path, or the risk is too much, or they never take the path, and people forget. Was it Michael Jordan has hit more winning shots than anybody else, but then
he's also missed
the most. So like there has to be that like happy medium of like actually taking the risk.
Yeah,
but yeah, like having those contingencies is great.
Okay, what other couple? We got time for a couple more.
Yeah. Oh, I had a good one, and do you think, you guys, here's a question. What personality traits or things that your wives have like noticed about yourself that you didn't notice about yourself, like holes that you have that like she helped you recognize and be better with?
Oh man, that's good. Ryan's
I'm afraid to answer this.
He's got some of the tip of his tongue.
So you're talking about like what kind of character flaws and like weaknesses?
I don't think we have character flaws, like per se. Like
I do. I don't know about you.
I mean, like character flaws, but like I mean, patterns that maybe that like were not good patterns, or character flaws that were hindering you to reach the goals that you wanted to reach that she saw prior to everybody else.
Yeah, I mentioned it earlier. Just the kind of tendency to be impulsive as I was. Just really exploring as many venues as I could, primarily because I just really wanted to leave the job I was in. But I also felt I had certain passions and interests that I wanted to flesh out in a career that I would pursue. And so just during when COVID was, we were in the midst of lockdown and seemed like everyone was releasing a coaching course online. So there's a lot of traps that you could fall into. And, I explored a couple of those. I wouldn't say that they were bad in nature, but I think they kind of overpromised on what they could deliver. And they weren't free. So there's another consideration. So when I'm not just like clicking the pay button without talking to her. And so when I tell her what it is and what it costs, like she obviously has questions, and then I've got to be able to kind of validate why I want to do it. And I think after a couple different explorations, it was just kind of a conversation of like, okay, I appreciate that you're like trying to learn new things and explore different paths, but is this next thing just going to be the next thing? Or I think really just causing me to like pause and carefully consider, is this a viable career path? Is this something I could really see myself enjoying, or is it just an escape from what I'm feel currently stuck in?
So basically she did a really good job about slowing you down.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes like a lot of us, if you have an entrepreneur mindset, I think sometimes we get tunnel vision and we have a good chance of just like running fast and not slowing down, and
Missing
thinking.
it all.
Yeah.
Yeah. My wife, I would say that when we first got married, I would get passionate, I would call it, which was just yelling in her book. And so she did a really good job of like, sometimes when you get excited about something, you can bypass other people's feelings because you're so excited about it, and like take a step back and then like make sure everybody's input is spoken for or thought through, and then you can make a decision together. So I would say for mine, if I get
That's great.
too tunnel minded, it's like, it doesn't matter who's with me or I'm going there, and like that doesn't feel great.
Yeah.
So that's something.
That's great, guys.
Good question.
What about you?
I mean, like,
Oh.
again, this is just everything about my wife. She legitimately helped me find myself. So
Yeah.
when being lost, but I think the one thing that she's really helped me come to that's been like life-giving to me is, and trust me, this took a long time to swallow when she like brought it out, but she would start seeing me go down a path of like being stressed out, but she could call it out probably about a week or two before I would hit my pitfall.
Oh, that's a huge superpower.
Yeah, so like she like, what's going on? And I'd be like, nothing. I'm fine. Because I honestly thought I was fine.
I am thriving.
Yeah. But like I without not knowing, I had patterns of things of doing that I would do, and she's like, here it comes. And she would know
man.
like Aaron's going to fall off, and Aaron's going to spend an afternoon in the basement watching TV because he's sad, you know?
Yeah.
So she helped me, and now I don't have as many pitfalls because she can help me catch them before they get hit.
Right.
And now you know that she can see it, so you're probably more receptive to.
Yeah,
if
but-
she brings it up, you're like, oh, there might.
Yeah, that. But she's also like the biggest thing is she taught me how to see my own. And I don't always catch them, you know, because you're in her life, and we got our tunnel vision going. But she could see it prior, and then over time, she's helped me, allowed me to see it.
Yeah,
That's good. All right, I have a couple more.
I have one too. At
right.
some point.
Do it now.
Are you sure?
I am 100%.
Okay.
I've got mine written down.
So yeah, as we were talking, I wrote down, what is one way that your spouse needs your support that you're not currently maybe best supporting them in, but that you'll commit to supporting them in right now?
Oh man, I gotta say it on a podcast.
Yeah, it's accountability.
Accountability, man. Oh. Welcome to The Uncommon.
Yeah.
If you haven't ever heard of The Uncommon podcast, that's when Ryan and I have together, and all we do is challenge each other to be better. And that's basically what that question came from.
A really
Dang
just
it.
hard question.
I'm not on that podcast, guys.
You are
You
now.
are now.
All right.
Come on,
Philip,
Aaron.
you got something?
I do. I think I can do way better at putting the kids to bed. Like I kind of let her kind of be the tip of the spear on that deal. But I think I can do a better job maybe supporting her and yeah, doing more of that and giving her a little bit more like energy. So
Yeah.
I definitely can serve her in a better way of doing that. And then making sure every one of the kids is down. And normally kind of the deal is she kind of goes upstairs and she just says goodnight, and then I go upstairs and say goodnight. But I think it would be fun if we all were up there. And the problem is I get like, we start wrestling. No, you know,
Yeah.
like there's a lot to, so that's,
Everything's a competition.
everything's a competition in the Ramsey's house.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think I can totally do a better job
Nice.
of helping my wife put the kids down and like making sure that goes smooth. Although it's funny because every time I go and put my kids down, she's always like, how did you do that so fast? And I'm like, hey, we got a routine. It's in, out, you know, like, anyway, she does a way better job of like being present with the kids. I've got a mission. We're getting it done. Yeah. So I don't think if that's
Like
not what I need to do.
$20 for the first kid who falls asleep.
I know. Get in your bed. Let's go. Who's going to win it?
Yeah.
But do a better job of the way that she does it, which is super intentional
Nice.
and loving
Yeah.
it. So
Mine's more because we both work full time. We share more duties around the house, and she does way more than I do about taking the upkeep of the house. I think I could probably do a lot better job of helping her, like keeping the dishes clean.
All right. There you
doing a load of laundry. So Yeah, I think so. I guess if we're taking our thing, what we're going to say is like, I'm going to help out with dishes more because, I mean, it's not like I don't like to eat. I eat a lot, so probably most of the dishes are mine in the first place. And then our bedding. I know she just asked me if I could do the bedding.
Make the bed?
No, like, so we like wash our bedding like once or twice a week.
Oh, interesting.
So,
all right.
Well, also put that in, like, we have 2 dogs, so there's also that. So, but she said she had asked if I could do it since we work remote.
Yeah.
If I could throw it in the morning and then throw it in the dryer in between meetings.
I'm holding you accountable to that.
It's like, okay.
I have a podcast to show for it too.
Yeah.
Heard it here first, Ashley.
That's
Yeah.
Nice. Awesome.
All right, what's yours?
I put, we have 2 young boys, 2.5 and 1. And I think in the first few years of our marriage, a little bit of backstory. I was single until, after college, until I started dating Victoria. So got pretty used to just living an independent life. And so that definitely, I tried to carry that into marriage. And was
How'd that go?
I mean, it was rough at times. No, there was a couple times that I've even shared this on the other show of like times that I went out with a friend and like didn't tell her, just totally slipped my mind. So all that to say is like I've made it a priority to still do life with my friends, and I think Victoria hasn't had that as much. And so one way that I'm finding, especially now with having kids, a way to support her is to encourage her and give her not the permission, but just like, hey, yeah, I've got the boys, like go out. Like I think tonight she's even gonna go out with a friend, and then me and her friend's husband are gonna watch the kids. And
nice.
And then she's going on a girls' trip to Florida in a couple weeks. So I'll have the boys solo for a couple days, and I'm kind of terrified.
Excited about it.
Yeah,
You're
excited and terrified.
Yeah, get excited.
So I think and she's started working out at a gym right down the street from our house. So even that looks like, hey, I would love to take a class at like 5. Am I free to watch the kids? So just being proactive to say like, yep, take that time. Because I know when I do that, I show up better as a husband and dad, and I know that the same is for her. So
good. So I'll leave the listeners with this. Here's a couple ideas too that I think have been helpful for just when I was thinking through this. Like, let your spouse know that you trust them. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
Let them know that you see and value their hard work. And then I put one and I circled it, celebrate with them. Like, put things on the calendar or just celebrate. Like, this is not an easy traveled road, the uncommon journey, but there's times that you just need to celebrate that. And so let them know no matter what, you'll do it together. So that's just kind of something cool. And then I think a cool thing that I think a lot of people do is just block and tackle. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've had a later night and then Aaron is just like, I got everything that we need to, you just do you. And it allows me to provide in such a way that I love. So I think those are a couple ways just to kind of support your spouse in this. And this, again, can be husbands, it can be wives. But I think this is just a fun podcast to think about, like, we're doing life together. And there's a lot of times, and everybody said this in our podcast, and we all kind of agreed, we wouldn't be where we were at without our spouse. So hopefully this pays homage to all the people who are sacrificing behind the scenes. And you've been listening to the Uncommon Life Project, which is now the Uncommon Wealth Partners podcast.
Yeah.
Stop that. We're going to redo that. Sorry, Ben. Sorry. Thought it was going well. You've been listening to the Uncommon Wealth Partners podcast. I've been your host, Philip, Ryan Garvey, and Aaron Kramer. Until next time, go be uncommon. Thanks for listening.
Thanks.
That's all for this episode, brought to you by Uncommon Wealth Partners. Be sure to visit uncommonwealth.com to learn more about our services. Don't miss an episode as we introduce you to inspiring people who are actively pursuing an uncommon life.